JTG Daugherty Racing will downsize to one-car operation in 2022. Talks are continuing in regards to front row in 2311, potentially merging in 2022. And it looks like Starcom Racing is going to be selling their NASCAR charter. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to another video. We've got a lot of NASCAR stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go and just jump straight into those really quickly. The first story we're going to talk about is Ryan Ellis, as Ryan Ellis is going to drive the 33 truck for Ram Brothers this weekend at Darlington International Raceway. Originally, Josh Bliggy was supposed to drive this truck, but unfortunately, due to the fact that he's a Cup Series driver who's going for Cup Series points, and with the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs starting, and the Truck Series Plus going at the same time, he is not eligible to race. So Ryan Ellis, who has been racing for his team a couple times, will be racing in this car. I'll be honest, I expect Ryan Ellis to do pretty decent this weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe gets to the top 25 or top 30. We saw Chris Hacker do pretty decent in this truck, but these trucks are not that fast, so maybe he won't run well, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this guy run really well. I think Ryan Ellis is a very, very talented and a very gifted driver, and I think he'll do really well this weekend. It's really cool to see, though, that Ryan Ellis is going to be racing a truck race, and not to mention, he is going to have a little bit of experience in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race as well, as he's going to be driving the number 99 for BJ McLeod Motorsports. So hopefully he's going to run really, really well, and I'm wishing him the best of luck this weekend here at Darlington International Speedway. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Colby Howard, as Colby Howard is going to be driving the number 9 for CR7 Motorsports this weekend at Darlington International Raceway. I think that Colby Howard has some talent for sure. I've talked about in the past. This year has not been that great in the JD Motorsports equipment, but we've seen this truck run up front at times, especially when Grant Enfinger has been in this truck. We've seen this truck run up front and be very, very competitive. So I would not be surprised to see this guy run really well this weekend. I'm hoping he does really, really well. It'd be really cool to see him have a good shot of contending. I'm expecting him to maybe get a top 20 this weekend in the number 9 truck. Like I said, we've seen that truck running really, really well. I'm wishing the best of luck and good luck to Colby Howard. And I believe he's also going to be running the NASCAR Xfinity Series race as well. So he's going to have a little bit of experience coming in this weekend. Wishing him the best of luck this weekend here at Darlington International Raceway. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Chad Fincham. As Chad Fincham is going to be driving the 61 for MBM Motorsports this weekend at Bristol International Speedway. Chad Fincham has not raced that much this year due to sponsorship obligations, and a lot of people like Austin Hill and David Starr have driven that 61 because some of them have Whataburger and also Hattori Hassan backing in that number 61 as well. I'll tell you, Chad Fincham, I think, is a very, very talented driver. I mean, he does have a K&N or ARCA East win, I think back in 2015 in the number 40. I can't remember exactly which team he won with. But I think that Chad Fincham has a very strong potential of running up at least in the top 20. We've seen the MBM cars run in the top 20, and I think especially with his talent, I think he'll have a good shot of running well. He hasn't ran that much this year, like I said, but I'm hoping this will give him a good opportunity to run up front, and I'm wishing him the best of luck this weekend here at Bristol International Speedway. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about the Truck Series, as it was reported by Bob Proctor yesterday that the Truck Series will likely be going slower after announcement for Talladega. The taper spacer is going to be reduced from a 1.050 to a 1.010 inches. Now, the Cup Series and Xfinity Series have already had some of their restrictions in regards, and I think that this is due to the fact of the flipping that has been going on in the Truck Series, well, even this year. I don't know if we've had any flips so far this year in the Truck Series, but they're doing this in regards to issues when it comes to these trucks flipping, and they're trying to reduce the speeds. Now, the problem with the Truck Series and the NASCAR Xfinity Series is that you can't bump draft at all, so it's very, very difficult to pass, and you're going to have more potential blocks that are going to happen and maybe more problems with the reduced speeds. And again, it should be able to reduce speeds, don't get me wrong, but you might see some crazier accidents in this wall, and you might also see some tandem drafting, and I wish they would have bump drafting available for the trucks and Xfinity Series, and we could be able to lock bumpers. I think the series would be in a much better shape, but I understand why they're doing this for the sake of making sure that nothing goes wrong, but in my opinion, I don't like them reducing because, again, the racing has been decent at super speedways in the past for trucks. Wishing that, but hopefully things go well with this, and hopefully we don't see some really bad racing in the Truck Series. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Taylor Gray. As Taylor Gray is going to be competing the ARCA West races at Portland and Las Vegas Motor Speedway Bullring. And also, not to mention, Taylor Gray is going to be doing double duty in the ARCA and Trucks races at Bristol Motor Speedway. In regards to the ARCA West races, I don't believe Taylor Gray has ever ran any ARCA West races. I think he's been mainly focused on the ARCA East and the main ARCA series, so I don't think he has any ARCA West races so far. I know his brother's had some experience in those series. I'm not exactly sure how much experience he has at some of these tracks. I'm not exactly sure what experience he has in it, because I know that his brother, like I said, competed on drag racing and stuff. But Taylor Gray, like I said, I've talked about him quite a bit in regards to his craft, and I'll say this about Taylor Gray. Taylor Gray has been very, very aggressive, and he's had a lot of problems throughout his career as well. And again, he's young enough. He's only 16 years old, and again, he's racing on short tracks. Just hopefully there's going to be no antics coming out of these races. Hopefully there's no trouble in regards to that. In regards to running double duty Bristol, I think that he will run a little bit better than a lot of people are expecting him to run, because, like I said, he's going to be running the ARCA race and the truck series, so he's going to be pulling double duty. I don't remember ARCA and trucks like last year. I don't know if they're going to be on the same day at this current moment. I'm not exactly sure on that, but I'm wishing the best of luck to Taylor Gray, and hopefully he will do very, very well in these races. Good luck to Taylor Gray this weekend. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about the starting lineups for the Cup Series, Xfinity Series, and the Truck Series races this weekend here at Darlington. Let's first start off with the Truck Series. Sheldon Creed, who won the last race at Gateway, is starting on the pole. I don't remember starting on the front with him, but Sheldon Creed is going to start on the pole in that race. My pick going into the Truck Series race at Darlington is going to be John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter Nemechek dominated the last time we were at Darlington for crashing late in that event. I think that Sheldon Creed will have a very, very strong run. I think he'll be very, very fast against John Hunter Nemechek, but I do think at the end of the day, John Hunter Nemechek is going to pick up the overall victory in the Truck Series and lock himself into the round of 8 in the Truck Series playoffs. Now jumping on to the NASCAR Xfinity Series starting lineup. Daniel Hemrick is going to be starting on the pole in that race. My pick going into the NASCAR Xfinity Series race is going to be the guy that's driving the 54 car, Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin seems like he runs up front every time he's in an Xfinity Series car, and the 54 car has overall been the best car in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. So I am going to say that I think Denny Hamlin is going to have an overall good shot of winning, and I think he will pick up the win in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And now we're going to jump onto the Cup Series. So Ryan Blaney is going to be starting on the pole in that race. And I believe Kyle Larson, who actually is my pick going at, is going to be starting 6th. Like I said, I think Kyle Larson is going to pick up his 6th win of the 2021 season and open up the playoffs with a win. Kyle Larson, last time we were there, ended up finishing 6th. So I think that Kyle Larson is going to go out there and pick up the overall victory in that event and already lock himself into the round of 12 and continue to pick up a lot more playoff points than he has at the current moment. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Spire Holdings. It was reported by Adam Stern that Spire Holdings is forming another new business, this time an automotive marketing agency named Spire Plus. Spire Plus will focus on landing work from companies in the car world would need help with marketing efforts. I think that this is really, really cool initiative that Spire is doing. Spire has basically been doing a lot of things. They were in promotion, I think, with Circuit Americas a little bit, and they also were in promotion with the Knoxville Truck Series race as well. And we've been seeing them get involved not just in the NASCAR world, but other agencies as well. And they also do driver development at the same time as well. So I think this is really, really cool initiative, what they're doing overall. I really, really like this, and hopefully we'll see a lot of good things come out of this. I think that this is really cool what Spire is doing. I think that this is going to be a huge benefit overall in the world of automotive industry as well. I mean, NASCAR, we have Hendrick has automotive industry as well with HendrickCars.com, even though Rick Hendrick is 100% associated with that. They do sponsor and brand that overall. So really cool to see Spire is getting involved with that and stuff, and they're expanding into different outlets as well. Really cool in my honest opinion. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we are talking about Chase Elliott. As Chase Elliott tomorrow is going to be on College Game Day in the Georgia versus Clemson game. Of course, Chase Elliott is from Georgia, so of course, from the Dawsonville, Georgia. So of course, he's going to be there to support the Georgia. I believe this game is going to be taking place maybe in North Carolina. He's going to be involved with that in the morning, so if you want to check that out, you definitely should. It's really cool that ESPN has been branching up a little bit back with NASCAR, even though a lot of their headlines on their social medias and stuff have overall not been that positive, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it is really cool that Chase Elliott is getting involved in this. It's good to see NASCAR getting a little bit more representation on ESPN. Maybe in the future ESPN gets involved, even though, like I said, ESPN has made a lot of mistakes. I would feel like ESPN is going to make a lot more mistakes if they try to get involved with NASCAR. But yeah, I think overall it's super cool that they're doing that. It's a really cool initiative, and I'm looking forward to that for sure. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Darlington NBC's broadcast lineup for this weekend. First, Ricky Carmichael is going to be covering the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at Darlington Raceway. Now, Ricky Carmichael is definitely really interesting because the last time Ricky Carmichael raced in NASCAR in general, I think was in like 2011, 2012 when he raced for Eight Scott or Turner Motorsports, and he was a decent driver overall in NASCAR. Wasn't absolutely great. His motocross stuff didn't always transfer, but he had decent runs overall. But it's really interesting that NBC and even Fox this year have brought back people that we never thought were going to be. I know that Ricky Carmichael, I think, has experience at this track in the past, so really cool that Ricky Carmichael is going to be on that broadcast. On top of that, for Sunday, they are bringing back the old school lineup for their during stage number 2. Dale Jr., Kyle Petty, and Dale Jarrett will cover the race in stage number 2. I really like this lineup, to be perfectly honest with you. I like that, especially for the Southern 500. I don't think they did this last year, but this year, I like it they're bringing that lineup back again. I think last year it was Dale Jr., I think these are the same 3 people that did it this past year. So I think this is really cool what they're doing. It's a really cool initiative. Old school lineup. And it's like Apology as well. And NBC has done this for the last couple years. So I think this is a really cool initiative, what they're doing overall. And great that NBC is changing up their game just a little bit. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Kaz Grala. As Kaz Grala has been cleared to return to competition when he returns to race at Talladega Superspeedway. If you've not been following the Kaz Grala story, Kaz Grala was injured in a wreck with 2 laps to go at Daytona. He basically T-boned into Kyle Busch and basically had a broken leg and had surgery on that, I believe, and he's basically currently recovering from that at the moment. I think he fractured something as well. He had a cast and basically he's been on crutches as well. But the good news for a lot of you Kaz Grala fans like myself, he is going to be making his return to NASCAR. It's really awesome to see this because, again, I think Kaz Grala this year, especially throughout this year, has done a lot of good stuff. I think he also deserves to go full-time in racing currently at the moment. But really cool to see that Kaz Grala is getting involved once again, and great to see the Kaz Grala will be back racing at Talladega really, really soon. I'm looking forward to that very, very soon for sure. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as Joe Shearer Jr. is going to be crew chiefing for Johnny Sauter once again at Darlington Raceway. Now, Joe Shearer Jr., the last time he raced in the Truck Series a couple weeks ago at Gateway, there was a crew chief change where Bud Holfey, who was the crew chief of the 66 truck, he basically went over to work with Johnny Sauter in the 13, and Joe Shearer Jr. worked with Ty Majeski in the 66, and I think Joe Shearer Jr. benefited Ty Majeski throughout the event. Even though Ty Majeski ended up crashing in the Truck Series race, it was really cool to see that he was able to go work with Ty Majeski, help his performance, and Bud Holfey helped a little bit with Johnny Sauter's performance a little bit as well. Now, Joe Shearer Jr. and Johnny Sauter have worked together a very, very long time, and very intrigued because, again, the 66 truck is not going to be racing this weekend. I'm very intrigued to see how Joe Shearer Jr. is if this is going to help Johnny Sauter out or if this is not going to help Johnny Sauter out. I'm very intrigued to see what's going to happen on that front. But I think it's really cool what they're doing overall in regards to that. And great to see that Joe Shearer Jr. is once again going to be crew chiefing for Johnny Sauter once again. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking more about 2311 Racing and Kurt Busch. There was a reporter yesterday by Adam Stern that Monster Energy's financial investment into Kurt Busch in 2311 next year will be at a similar level to where it's been in recent seasons, per Mitch Covington, who's basically the executive of Monster Energy. Industry execs believe that it will be around $10 million. Kurt Busch, we already know, is going over 2311 Racing. Monster Energy is going to be backing Kurt Busch for the majority of the season, if not the whole entire season. Again, the number of races have not been confirmed at this time. I believe it's $10 million will probably at least get him 25 to 30 races for the 2022 season. Schedule's not been released, but we know that there's going to be 36 races and a couple extra races as well. So we're not exactly sure how many races they're going to sponsor him for the year. But it's really cool to see that Monster Energy has not backed down. They had also extended their contract with Kurt Busch. So it's really awesome to see the Kurt Busch at 2311. Again, it's really cool to see Kurt Busch is going over 2311. I think it's going to benefit the organization as a whole going forward. And it's really cool that Monster Energy is going to continue to work with Kurt Busch long term. I think this is going to benefit both parties long term. And again, Monster Energy has had a long-term commitment with Kurt Busch since all the way back in 2012. So overall, it makes a lot of sense for this partnership to continue growing long-term. In the future, this team is absolutely brilliant, absolutely promising. And again, I'm really excited. Like I said, I'm really excited to see that Kurt Busch is going over there. And I think it's awesome to see that Monster Energy will continue to back Kurt Busch long-term. The fact that it's still going to be $10 million is absolutely crazy. And the fact that we have a sponsor that has been committed as long to one single driver that's coming up on a 10-year sponsorship with Kurt Busch is really, really awesome. And I'm looking forward to that long-term for sure. And now we're going to go and jump on to the next story of today's episode. As we're talking about NASCAR and I Am Athlete. This is also reported by Adam Stern, by the way. He says that NASCAR and Brandon Marshall have formalized an official partnership around the I Am Athlete series. He also mentioned that I Am Athlete NASCAR will be a new show shot over 16 episodes airing on YouTube with their premiere this fall. If for many of you do not know what the I Am Athlete series, this is a really, really cool show. It's like a podcast where they bring not just NASCAR drivers on, but a lot of sports athletes as well. They've already had Kyle Busch on their show, and they've also had Dale Earnhardt Jr. as well. And if you look at the viewership for I Am Athlete, the viewership is absolutely incredible. Chad Okocinco and Brandon Marshall have built a very, very good podcast. And again, they have been also getting more and more involved in NASCAR. Not only that, we have been seeing more of an NFL presence in NASCAR as well. You look at Alvin Kamara, who currently plays for the New Orleans Saints. You've got Bernie Pollard Jr., who also was involved in the NFL for a long time and a legendary NFL player as well. And now you have these two getting more involved in NASCAR partnership as well. This is really, really cool to see. And again, I think that this is also going to benefit NASCAR a ton. Especially, like I said, the I Am Athlete channel has a ton of subscribers. I'm not exactly sure how many subscribers they have overall. But the fact that they continue to partner up with more and the fact that NASCAR is expanding out to different areas and stuff is really, really cool for the future of the sport going forward long term. I'm definitely looking forward to that. Really exciting news overall for sure in regard to that. Happy to see that we're going to see a major partnership. Again, I think this is really, really cool. Looking forward to that overall for sure. We're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Jimmie Johnson in regards to IndyCar. Now, about a couple hours after I had reported on my channel about Jimmie Johnson potentially doing some more testing, wanting to do more tests, he says he wants to attempt to keep IndyCar racing in 2023 and beyond. And he said, for as long as Chip will have me. Now, Jimmie Johnson is going to be having another IndyCar test coming up in regards to him running the Indianapolis 500. And for a test coming up in October, also Romain Grosjean is going to be involved in that test as well. In regards to Jimmie Johnson racing long term, I think it makes a lot more sense. I think Jimmie Johnson has been slowly figuring out these IndyCars, even though so far this year he's not been absolutely fantastic to watch in IndyCar. He's had a tremendous effort, and he's been making slowly but surely a lot of improvements in his time in IndyCar. And I think so far what we've seen from the oval test, there were stats that came out that he ran 214 miles an hour, which would have made him fourth fastest if there was qualifying, would have made him fourth fastest in the time trials and all this stuff, which is really, really impressive, by the way. I think Jimmie Johnson should consider running quite a few ovals. There's potential that he can run more ovals as well. And I think Jimmie Johnson should do that. Do you think that if Jimmie Johnson in 2022 ends up getting it down and starts being competitive, do you think that Jimmie Johnson is going to quit racing IndyCar? No. I think Jimmie Johnson is going to continue to long-term race IndyCar, and I still believe that next year, even though it's not confirmed, if the test goes well at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and he's been very intrigued about it, if the test goes really well at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, I think that Jimmie Johnson will 100% make an attempt to run the Indy 500 next year. I really think he's going to do it. I'm very, very confident about that. I think sponsors are going to be willing to jump on that. And I think not only that, I wouldn't be 100% shocked to see Jimmie Johnson be really, really competitive. So hopefully get more in regards to that coming out really, really soon. Like I said, there is going to be tests. I believe it's on October 8th or October 9th at IMS. We'll have to wait to see how it's come out of the test. If he does really well in Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and he potentially could get his rookie test done as well and be able to participate in the race in the rookie orientation as well. I believe this could be where him and Romain Grosjean get the rookie orientation as well. So really looking forward to that for sure, and hopefully we'll see more come out on that story really, really soon. And now we're going to go and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Denny Hamlin. Now, Denny Hamlin spoke to the media recently in regards to 2311. Bob Pockers had reported, and here's what Bob Pockers reported. 2311 has bought land to build a shop. They hope to have it built by 2023, but might wait on some plans and how it could impact when they make the move. Now, for a lot of you who have not been paying attention to the story, it was reported by that Charlotte 46 studio that they have bought $15 million into 15 acres of land for like $10 million, I believe, to be able to set up a shop. There's been talk for a while, all the way back in February earlier this year, that they were looking to go into buying a shop for the long term. And I think that they are going to do that really, really soon. Now, the big question right now is, when is this move going to happen? Like Denny Hamlin said, it may be longer than 2023. But I will say this one thing. I think the future 2311 is absolutely promising. They've been making a lot of major moves. They have a lot of sponsorship. So The thing is, it depends on how long it's going to take. I honestly don't expect them to move into the 2311 Racing Shop, the new one in Branson over there, to be the next big super team. I don't expect them to move into that shop till probably around 2024. I think it's going to be a year later than 2023. Again, I could be surprised, and they can move into the shop as early as 2023, but I'll be perfectly honest and sincere with you guys. I don't think that they are going to move in as quick as a lot of people are assuming. I think it's going to take some time for them to move into that shop. But I'm really excited about the future of 2311 Racing in regards to the shop and a lot of things in regards to that organization going forward. And it's good to hear some more in regards to this. I've been wanting to hear a little more details in regards to the shop, and great to see that we're getting more information in regards to that shop. Like I said, they bought some land for there, and I believe that they're going to be getting the building processes really, really soon for 2311. And now we're going to jump on to the next stories of today's episode, as we're going to go ahead and start talking about some next-gen stuff that has come out recently. The first next-gen news we'll look at is looking at the number placement on the cars. Someone went to, I believe the Team Penske shops, I believe that has opened up, and we saw the number placement on the car. Now, again, this is not finalized at the moment, but it does look like this potentially could be what the number placement is going to look like going into 2022 for the next-gen car. One thing I'm going to say is that number placement is really, really too far forward, in my opinion. That is almost up to the wheel, and that is way too far. It does look really good. The car looks really, really promising. I think one thing that needs to happen is that number needs to move back about 2 or 3, maybe 6 inches a little bit farther to the right, and I think that you're going to have a really, really good-looking number. Again, they're doing this and moving the number placement for the sake of making sure that sponsors can get more initiative as well. Again, I think that you need to have sponsor activation and engagement like what DoorDash is doing. You need to have sponsor activation and engagement to be able to keep sponsors long term, because you're not going to be able to see a logo on the car as much when it's going 200 miles an hour. But again, I think it makes sense to do doing it if sponsors can get active in the sport a little bit more. It's very intriguing that they're moving that back a little bit more. Definitely interesting news on that for sure. The next next-gen stuff we're going to talk about is next-gen pit stops. According to the Money Pockets, the one that Corey LaJoie and Ryan Flores do, he says that pit stops next season could be as quick as 9 seconds going into next year. Due to basically the single lug nuts on the car, we could be seeing pit stops in the single digits going into next year. That is really, really interesting. I think IndyCar pit stops, I think, are 7 to 8 seconds, and F1 pit stops are generally 2 to 3 seconds. Now, of course, it's still going to take a little bit of time to get to pit stops. We're not going to get to the point as of now where we're going to F1, because remember, they are going to a single lug nut in the next-gen car going into next year. They're going to be switching from 5 lug nuts to 5 traditional lug nuts we've basically had since the beginning of NASCAR. They're going to be switching over to the single lug nut going forward. So I think that's really cool overall for sure that they are going to be going to the single lug nut. Again, I'm a big fan of that because, again, I think every major motorsport, I think including IMSA, they do have single nuts. So they're going a little bit modern technology in that. I think modernizing the sport a little bit, going to single lug nuts, I think that that is really promising, and it's really good news overall on that for sure. And next-gen news we're going to talk about is in regards to the next-gen car and Christopher Bell's next-gen test. Christopher Bell was speaking to the media about his next-gen test, and he states that the direction we're heading is to get all bigger racetracks to race like Daytona or Talladega. When I saw this, I was not very happy. I'll be very, very honest, because I'll tell you about intermediate racing. One of the biggest problems I will say with intermediate racing is that there are too many intermediate tracks. Now, one thing that could benefit from this is that NASCAR is trying to head more toward a short track or a road course focus. There's talks of maybe more road courses coming on the schedule for next year. You've got talks of right now going out to maybe Portland next year. You've also got talks of maybe racing on a street course going into 2022 as well. So you might have some more road course on the schedule as well. And NASCAR is looking to bring more short tracks back as well. They're looking at trying to get North Wilkesboro back, and there's been a lot of cleanup going on over there, and there's been a lot of work going on over there. You've got talks of the Nashville Fairgrounds that potentially could be coming back really, really soon. And Auto Club is also going to be turning into a short track as well. But at the same time, they're looking to sacrifice it. And again, I don't like that, to be honest with you, because a lot of people thought when we got the 2019 package, we get back to where we were a couple years ago with intermediate racing. Don't get me wrong, the field kind of dragged out. But if you look at Raceland, Michigan, a lot of people enjoyed the Michigan race overall this year. And I'll tell you, the Michigan race I thought was okay, and it definitely passed the eyeball test. But if we have races similar to Daytona and Talladega, that's not going to be exciting. There is a reason why Daytona and Talladega are really, really special, because you have to have some skill. And that's another thing I forgot to mention is the skill. You take out the driving skill. Yes, you have to have the skill when it comes to your mind and how you think, but at the same time, your mental skill. But it takes out the true driving skill in a lot of people, and we don't get to see all the best drivers out there when it comes to super speed racing intermediate tracks. Again, I don't think every single track you're going to affect. I don't think you're going to affect a track like Homestead. I don't think that's a track that you're overall going to affect. But you're going to affect some really, really good tracks, and it's not going to fix the racing. I think what the NASCAR is trying to go for, I don't think it's going to work out like NASCAR is trying to go for, and I just don't understand 100% the direction NASCAR is going. There's a lot of fans that don't enjoy it. Again, I think the casual fans are going to enjoy it. But again, casual fans, they're not going to stick around. They're trying to make them stick around for a long time. And I understand what NASCAR is trying to do here because, again, they're focused on short tracks and road courses. But I think they're looking in the wrong areas, and you have to fix some things in regards to that. The other driver that seems to not overall be happy in regards to the next-gen car is Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch was on a podcast not too long ago, and he was asked about the next-gen car. And what he said was, I think it's a step in the wrong direction, but it's what we got. And he was really talking about the ingenuity and the ingenuity into the engines. Now, remember, there isn't a new engine that is probably coming into NASCAR until probably around 2023 or even 2024. They've been talking maybe they're going to have it even up to next year. But because of COVID and stuff, they've been pushing it farther back. And I think this is in regards to the new engine package as well. And the new engineers are really the people that are getting involved. I understand where Kyle Busch is coming from too, because the teams can be really, really creative. And I don't want NASCAR to turn a situation like F1 where you have the best teams up front in that. But I also do think at the same time, there is some benefit from this as well. We may be able to see more competition in the field as well because everything is becoming spec next year. You may be able to see some new players come into the field as well, such as you might see some teams like Row Motorsports take the next step forward. Maybe like RCR becomes a team that takes the next step forward. We'll have to wait to see what happens in regards to Kyle Busch again, not being happy again. Kyle Busch, also one thing to know, was not a big fan of the 2019 package where he basically dominated, and he was not a big fan of the car of tomorrow. So that's one thing you know is Kyle Busch has not been a big fan of these new gen cars. He wasn't really against the Gen 6 car. He wasn't really a big fan of that. But also at the same time, you know, Kyle Busch, again, I understand where Kyle Busch comes from, and I think Kyle Busch knows what he's talking about. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. We haven't seen his car race again. It's one thing to know. We'll have to see what happens going forward with the next gen car as well. And also remember, there is going to be a test going on next week at Daytona, next Tuesday, next Wednesday. We'll probably talk about that on Thursday or Friday when that comes out next week. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we are talking about JTG Daugherty Racing. As it was announced on Tuesday evening that JTG Daugherty Racing is going to be downsized into one car in 2022, and they will not be pursuing a charter. Now, no one knows currently what the lineup is going to be for JTG Daugherty Racing going in 2022, but it is believed currently at the moment that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is expected to return to the 47 car in 2022. Now, let's be honest, the 37 car that Ryan Preece is currently driven, I don't think they've been putting as much effort into that car as they have been to the 47 car, but we've seen the 37 car run, and again, remember at the beginning of the year, basically Spire Motorsports took back the charter from the 3017. I think they gave that charter to 99, or they put that into their 77 car. I don't remember exactly who they gave it to, but it is unfortunate JTG Daugherty Racing is going to downsize. I think that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is going to remain in the 47 car next year. I don't expect anything to change in regards to that. So what does that mean for the future of Ryan Preece? Honestly, Ryan Preece's future is really, really murky. We'll talk more about Ryan Preece's future because we have another team we're going to talk about here really, really soon. But I think the future of Ryan Preece is a little bit murky in the Cup Series. There is potential he could go to the NASCAR Xfinity Series, or he can go to another Cup Series team. You got GMS, you have potentially Spire that could be open up down the road for him. Again, I think Ryan Preece is a very, very talented driver. He's done really, really well. I mean, he got his first top fives in the Cup Series in his first start in the Cup Series. So, first start with JTG Daugherty Racing. And he's had decent success with his team. But again, I think that the JTG Daugherty cars in the 37 car is not really that good a car. And I think he deserves to go somewhere else where he is going to be really, really competitive. And it makes a lot of sense considering, again, I think JTG Daugherty Racing, they want to focus on one car where they can be overall competitive. And I think that next year, especially Ricky Stenhouse Jr., it depends on if they do go to Toyota or they remain with Chevy next year, I think that they are going to be competitive down the road and show a ton of speed going down the road. And I think it's going to make a lot of sense for this team to downsize to one car. It is unfortunate that they are going to be not a two-car operation next year, as I think the team have potential to keep a lot of things going. I mean, when Chris Busch drove for this team in the 37 car, this team was really, really competitive. But I think that this will make a lot of sense to the team going forward, and I think that next year, if one car compared to two cars, I think that they'll be very, very successful. We'll just have to see what's going on manufacturers. Like I said, there has been talks in regards to maybe this team going over to Toyota next year, so we'll have to see what happens and wait in regards to what's going on with JTG Daugherty Racing down the road. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Starcom Racing. As according to a report by Chris Knight from CashFence.com, he says that Starcom Racing has sold their charter for 2022, and apparently Spire Motorsports is expected to get that charter for the 2022 season. Basically, there have been rumors circulating really only about a few hours ago, and really this came out of nowhere, to be honest, because really up until about 6 or 7 in the evening, no one really knew what was going on. But there have been some rumors and some rumblings in regards to Starcom Racing potentially selling their stuff all the way back to earlier this year. There have been some rumors that even Starcom Racing could be that Chevy team that could be switching to Toyota as well. And what's very interesting is Spire Motorsports looking to get that second charter. Again, there's no figures that have come out. It could potentially be that they may have spent $15 million getting that charter. But remember, though, Spire Motorsports sold two of their 3 charters. They basically took that the 99 charter the Trackhouse had used, and they basically sold their 2 current charters over to College Racing, though the manager of Spire Motorsports, I think one of the bronze, I don't remember the guy's name exactly, but one of the bronze basically who works currently at that Spire Motorsports team, and just to be, of course, his cousin, of course, nephew, of course, he basically sold that over to College Racing, as Justin Elliott is driving for them full-time next year. He had basically sold over there. But this is really interesting to me. Now, I think that this move, I think, makes a lot of sense for the future of Spire Motorsports. Again, I think, let's be for real, Starcom Racing, they have not been a very competitive organization over the last couple years. They're currently the last team in the regular season points, so they haven't been overall that fast an organization, and they haven't really shown that they want to be really, really competitive. Compared to a team like Spire Motorsports, that even though this year has been kind of disappointing for them, they have shown, especially this past weekend at Daytona, where Corey LaJoie almost took the victory, that team has shown that they want to be competitive compared to a team like Starcom Racing, who hasn't been competitive since they got rid of Landon Cassill, so they haven't shown what they're capable of. Now, my big question is, if Spire Motorsports is going to get a second charter, are they going to do what they've done this year, where they've had, of course, they had Justin Elliott out of here, but are they going to have multiple drivers that drive his car, or are they going to have a second full-time driver? If I'm Spire Motorsports, I am going to try to get both full-time drivers and not split up the ride. I'm going to try to have 2 really competitive drivers. And I think that this is a benefit to one driver and one driver only. Ryan Preece. Like I said a little bit ago, Ryan Preece is going to be leaving JTG Daugherty Racing. He's going to be downsizing to one car, and there could be a potential he goes to Xfinity. However, I think that Spire Motorsports has potential to be a really good team. I think that this car will be a lot more competitive than what he has at a 37. The 37 car has shown speed in the past, but I think that if they are going to upsize next year and keep one full-time, another full-time driver next year, I think that Ryan Preece has to be the guy to go to. He has to be your choice, in my opinion, and I think that he'll bring a lot to the table. And again, what also this means for the future of Starcom Racing. Starcom Racing, I think, will probably go open next year. I won't think they'll go full-time. And maybe we'll see Landon Cassill come back, run a few races. But again, I think that if you're Spire, you take Ryan Preece, and I will tell you this, like I said a second ago, I think that Starcom Racing is not going to run full-time next year. I think that they are going to downsize to a part-time schedule next year. They're not going to run full-time. They may run a few races, maybe like the Daytona 500. Maybe they'll end up buying a charter for Record Racing. Maybe they'll end up buying another charter, just like Spire bought another charter for them. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but Starcom Racing looks like, again, this has not been confirmed at this moment. Again, we're waiting. It's not been confirmed. Someone from Spire said that it's not been confirmed, and Starcom said it's not confirmed at the moment, but there's talks currently this is going to happen. We'll have to wait and see what happens in regards to that. And now we're going to go and jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we're going to talk more about the potential merger between 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports. Starting off reports, really rumor kind of started all the way back, I think back at Indianapolis Road Course, where Bob Pockers had reported that there was a merger that was potentially going to happen. Basically, what he said was that the other one also could potentially be leased as well going into next year. Michael McDowell talked about Packers in regards to that, and he says amid the chatter of a possible 23-11 front row deal, is front row would continue in 2022 to race trucks and possibly Xfinity as well. And Michael McDowell says he expects to be front row full-time next year. In my honest opinion, I think that he absolutely deserves to be a front row next year. He's really, really prudent, and he's done a lot this year so far there. Now, there's a little bit more interesting stuff that did come out, and Jerry Freese was on SiriusXM NASCAR, and he says that we have had a lot of conversations going back to March, really, about front row and a different dynamic. But front row will be in the Cup Series. We're not going out of business. So here's what I think is going to happen with front row, because there's also talk of them going to the Xfinity Series next year and going to the Truck Series as well. I think front row will be in the Cup Series next year, but I think that front row is going to downsize to a one-car operation next year in the Cup Series, and I think that means Anthony Alfredo is going to be out, because I think that charter is going to go over to 2311 Racing. I think that they're going to end up taking that second charter, and I think that means that Anthony Alfredo will be out of that team. Here's what I think is going to happen to Anthony Alfredo. I think Anthony Alfredo is going to go down to the NASCAR Xfinity Series and race full-time there. I think he should be in Xfinity. I think he's really got rushed at the Cup too quickly. I think Anthony Alfredo does have the talent to back up what he's been able to do, but let's be for real, he's never had a full-time season until up to this year, and it kind of shows the inexperience he's had this year. So if I'm Anthony Alfredo, I'm taking a down step and going to Xfinity to be a little bit more competitive and maybe jumping up to the Cup Series full-time when there is an opportunity going forward. Here's another thing I also see happening. I think that they are going to go to Xfinity next year. I think they have shown there's been some talk maybe they could go to Xfinity. And maybe if they go to Xfinity, that's where they bring Todd Gillen up next year. I think Todd Gillen deserves to go to Xfinity next year. I know there's been talk maybe Todd Gillen could go to the 22 car for Team Penske next year. There's been some rumors in regards to that, but there's also been talk that Penske is going to have a full-on Cup Series drivers go there as well. Maybe a few exceptions like Ernie Francis Jr. going over it as well. But if front row is going to go to Xfinity next year, which they haven't raced in Xfinity since like 2009 or 2010 when they had Tony Raines in their car, I personally think that what's going to happen is they're going to go to Xfinity and they're going to get a partnership with Ford, and they'll bring Todd Gillen up to Xfinity if they're going to go up to Xfinity next year. And they'll still keep racing the trucks well and bring someone over there. Maybe that's where Anthony Alfredo goes. Maybe they bring Anthony Alfredo back down to the Truck Series. Again, I don't think he deserves to go all the way back down to trucks. I think he should go to Xfinity. But I think he went back to the Truck Series. He raced their front row in their organization and maybe long-term going forward. But the other thing I think I end up seeing happening with this merger is I think that this could mean that Row Motorsports, instead of that Chevy team switching over, I think that Row Motorsports next year could switch over to Toyota next year. There's potential that this can happen. And I think, especially with Row showing that they have potential to be really, really competitive long-term, they've been improving slowly but gradually. They have been improving as an organization. I think that if you're from Row Motorsports and you have the opportunity to go to Toyota next year, I think you take that opportunity. I think, one, they'll be more competitive. There's not a lot of teams at Toyota right now. You don't have a ton of them. Of course, you have 2311. It's going to be a 2-car operation next year. You have Joe Gibbs, that's 4 cars. And you have Gone Brothers, that's 1 car. So you only really have 7 or even 8 cars in the field when NBM Motorsports makes a few starts there. So you don't have a lot of Toyotas in the field. And Toyota has talked really since the beginning of the year about expanding their operations and expanding to more cars long term. So if you want my thoughts and 2 cents on the situation, I think that what's going to happen is I think Front Row is going to keep racing Cup next year, but I think that they are going, and also if they do end up selling both their charters and leasing them one out to like GMS next year, I think they'll buy a charter from Ricker Racing, in my honest opinion. But I think that they're going to go to Toyota, and they're going to form a partnership with Toyota, and they're going to improve. And again, Michael McDowell deserves to be with the team, and I think that if they do go to Toyota next year, I think they could be a borderline playoff team. They've shown it. Again, look at Michael McDowell this year. I know he's kind of fallen off as time has gone on, but Michael McDowell this year has been very, very overall extremely solid this year, and he's been a good driver overall. So if you want my thoughts in 2 cents, I think what's going to happen is Bravo is going to downsize a 1-car operation next year in Cup, but I think that next year we're going to see this team improve. And I think if them going to 1 car compared to 2 cars, they're going to be a lot more fast and be more competitive. And Michael McDowell, of course, been a good road course racer. I think that he'll benefit from this long term. So, anyway, that is it for today's NASCAR news video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications so you're notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow my Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and support my page on the list. Get your below for that, and comment your thoughts on today's video. What do you think Row Motorsports is going to do next year? Do you think that they are going to switch to Toyota next year and go to one car? Or do you think that these things are not going to happen? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Starcom potentially selling a charter? And do you think it's going to happen? And if so, do you think they shut down or race part-time in the Cup Series next year? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video. And I'll see you guys next time for some more great and awesome NASCAR content like this. Take care, everybody.